Welcome to this introduction video about run lists and the scheduler in Leapwork. Run lists are a great way to manage how large amounts of test automation or robotic automation flows are grouped together, scheduled, and then run on anything from a few to dozens or even hundreds of Leapwork agents on-premise in your own infrastructure or in the cloud. We'll be looking at how to do this in various configurations, including how to distribute flows to run in parallel across multiple agents at the same time, how to use something like a setup, run, teardown pattern, and how to control, based on conditions, which steps are run or not. Now you'll find run lists here in the main menu in Leapwork Studio. I should say that it may look a little different on your screen. That's okay. We're constantly improving the user experience in Leapwork. Before we get to the run lists themselves, I would just have a quick look at what else we have. So I've prepared a few flows. They don't really do much. It's just to demonstrate the run lists. But I'd like these flows to run together. And then I've also prepared a simple flow to run first before these flows, and a teardown flow that I'd like to run after everything else has run. I've also set up a few agents. I've set up two Leapwork agents in Amazon, but of course this could be on-premise as well. So let's dive into the run lists themselves. I'm just going to create a run list here, and I'll call it my run list. And the actual run list will appear on the right side of the screen. Now, what is a run list? Well, if you're working with test automation, you can think of run lists as a test suite, a way of grouping which flows should run together. If you're working with robotic process automation, you can think of run lists as a way to control where your robots are running and in what order. So a run list consists of steps, and inside steps there are flows. So I have my first step here, and I'll call this my main step. And I can add flows by clicking this button. And I'll just basically select all of the flows that I have in this folder here to be added to my step. And now I can reorder them if ordering is important. And I can even add the same flows multiple times. Let's just pick one of them. There we go. And it'll warn me that it already exists, but we can add it as a duplicate. So if it's really important to run this twice, we can of course just do that, or I can remove it again. But in my example here, I want to run my setup flow before any of these. So I'm going to add an extra step. That's going to be the first step. I'll just call this setup. And then I'm going to add the setup flow here. So that will run first. And now something happened to my second step, my main step. This drop down appears and it says always run, but that gives me the option to only run the second step if everything in the previous step was a success. So there's no point in running these flows here if my setup thing didn't work as expected. And I also want to run a cleanup job, so we'll call this one teardown. And I always want to run this regardless of what happened above. This may be a flow that cleans up something in a database, or takes down some applications from some virtual machines or whatnot. So anyway, here is a very simple setup with 3 steps and a condition built in to say that these flows here only can run if this setup step here has completed successfully. And it could of course contain many different flows that should all succeed together. So I'm just going to hit save here. And now it would actually be kind of nice to run these flows. For that, we need a schedule. So I'm going to create a new schedule by clicking this button. And I'll give my schedule a name, my first schedule. And in here, we can see that the run list is selected. And Leapwork has already tried to figure out an estimated runtime. And it's doing that based on past performance of this version of these flows running against the agents where they have previously run. And this will of course be automatically adjusted as time goes by and Leapwork learns more about how long it takes to run these flows in the configurations that you're choosing. Now the next thing we can select is when to run these flows, and by default it's set as on demand, which means we can run it with a click of a button, or we can trigger this to run from the REST API that's built into the Leapwork server, or we can set this to be scheduled, and I'm just going to pick that. Now we get a few more options here. We can decide what time zone to work in, and I'm in Copenhagen right now, so I'm just choosing this time zone here. We can decide when the schedule should begin working and if it's recurring. Now I'd like this to be a recurring schedule that just runs every, let's say, 20 minutes. It can also just run right after the last run. But I don't want it to run every day all the time. In fact, I want to pick some service windows here. So I'm just going to pick every day from 6 o'clock in the morning to 10 o'clock at night, except Fridays, where I'd like to tweak this window to be only from 6 in the morning to 3 in the afternoon. So I'm going to hit apply, and now we can also set an end date, but we don't really need to. We could set it to run after 10 runs, or just let it run indefinitely, or even pick a specific date and time to stop working. I'm just going to select no end date here. Now the next thing to do is to select where this run list is run, and we can see the 3 steps we have: the setup, the main, and the teardown step. And we haven't selected any agents to run them on yet, so I won't be able to hit save just yet. So we'll just select that the setup step should be run on both of my Amazon agents, and now down here we can see that we have a selection that says all flows must run on each one of the agents, and the flow sequence is just run them in order. We could run them in random order, but we'll select the order that they have inside the step itself. Now the main step are some test automation flows, and I would like those to run in a random order in keeping with good practice for the atomicity of test automation flows. So I'm going to hit apply, and then finally my teardown step I only need to run once. It might be, like I said, something that cleans up something in a database. There's no point in running it twice. We'll just make sure it runs on one of our agents. Hit apply, and now we're actually good to go. There are more options here to set. We can set variables that each of the flows and each of the steps can access and work with. We can set actions such as making Leapwork send an email when some error has occurred maybe. We'll skip that for now. We can also set additional settings such as deciding whether to queue or skip up runs depending on if the schedule is already running or if agents are busy, and error handling as well, such as stop running if it's been running for 25% more than the estimated runtime. So these kinds of things can be easily applied as well. But like I said, we're actually good to go here. So I'm just going to hit save, and in a few seconds we can see the schedule will be queued up and will start running on the agents, and we can actually see once they complete, they will turn green or red depending on status. And if we want to follow along, we can actually go to reporting, and we can see it updating in real time live here. And of course we can click into any one of them and follow along as the flows are running. Now these are just very simple example flows, so nothing really interesting happens here on my Amazon machines. But that's a very quick run through of run lists and the scheduler. It packs a lot of power, and it's useful for a lot of scenarios in both test automation and robotic process automation. In one of the next videos, we're going to dive into the advanced schedule assistant that will help you plan your resource utilization. So that's going to be in another video. Thank you for watching.